Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angelica Gutierrez, and I'm the director of GeoGLOS, the Global Water Sustainability Flagship. Welcome to our session, From Earth Intelligence to Water Security Action. So I want to introduce, I will be your master of ceremonies today, and I want to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Jim Nelson. He's professor at Brigham Young University at the Civil and Construction Engineering in the United States, and he's also the director of partnerships for GeoGLOS. Jim?
Thank you, Angelica. It's great to be here. Thank you for everybody that's come, and I really want to thank everyone, those who are here, but also those who are not, that have been part of the GeoGLOS story over the last several years. We aim to enable individuals and organizations to solve local water challenges with global water intelligence. And this began in 2014. I came to the Geo-Ministerial Summit here in Geneva, where 90 governments had just renewed GEO's mandate for another decade. Dr. David Maidman introduced me to colleagues from the WMO, from the JRC, from ECMWF. We were working on data sharing, and with them, we started asking a simple question. What if we could take the global gridded runoff data produced by ECMWF, map it to watersheds, route it through rivers, and then provide that data to those who needed it most? Well, a year later, as part of the National Flood Interoperability Experiment put on by NOAA, those pieces began to come together. During that experiment, led by Dr. David Maidman and hosted at the National Water Center, a group of BYU student researchers, we took on that task to test the idea of using that global runoff data. And it worked magnificently. We simulated every major river. There were almost 3 million river segments. And in every basin, we produced a 40-year historical simulation and a daily 15-day forecast. Once we saw that could work on the US hydrography and river network, we realized that it could work for anywhere, for anyone, anywhere in the world. Later at the first AmeriGeo Week in Cartagena, Angelica, where I first met her, invited me to present an early prototype of that work in regions outside the United States. I would later learn that much of the path that had led me to that meeting, she had already been building and standing up through her part in standing up the NOAA National Water Center, in helping to write the GEOS water strategy, and organizing under USGEO and co-authoring that 2014 GEOS water strategy. We had an idea that we could do this on every river, and Angelica had a vision that could see it, what it could mean. Together with Brad Dorn from NASA and other partners across the AmeriGeo community, they wrote the first GeoGLOS work program activity, launching the initiative, its mission, structure, and institutional backing. At the 2015 Geoplenary in Mexico City, Steve Cope from Esri saw the future and declared that soon it might serve every area that lacked hydrological intelligence. Steve became one of our earliest champions, and Esri's commitment to hosting our global mapping services has been foundational to the flagship GeoGLOS service and the river forecast system. In 2017, NASA's Earth Division allocated funding for 32 projects in support of GEO, and GeoGLOS became one of them. The funding propelled us from prototype to operational global system. Later that year at the GeoGLOS meeting in Tuscaloosa, Nagaraja Harshadeep from the World Bank challenged us, can you do this on every river in the world? He recognized our hydrologic modeling as a service, as a disruptive technology, and how it would change hydrologic services. We took that challenge seriously, and today GeoGLOS RFS covers river reaches worldwide. It produces that daily 15-day forecast and an 85-year plus retrospective simulation. Our forecasts are built on the ECMWF data and live on the AWS as part of their open data program. And our system handles thousands of river requests daily. As amazing as this all is, the part we're proudest of isn't the technology, it's the people it serves. The GeoGlows RFS has been implemented in several countries. In Nepal, it drives DHM's national bulletin. In Ecuador, INAMI has integrated with a flash flood guidance and drought alerts. In Malawi, after a community flood early warning system was deployed, the local Red Cross reported 0 lives lost, where in previous years people had been caught without time to respond and losses more severe. We're entering a new chapter with support from Google.org and the reemergence of the Severe Hubs as a global collaborative. We're moving from a research-based project to a sustained service, building impact, feedback loops, expanding into groundwater and flood mapping, and deepening regional partnerships. None of this has happened alone. NASA and NOAA help fund the science. ECMWF provides the forecast. Esri, AWS, Aquaveo, and others donate their infrastructure. The World Bank pushed us to think bigger. Severe opened doors across 3 continents. The WMO has helped us scale so that Hydromet and other water agencies from Quito to Kathmandu can rely on GeoGlow services to aid in solving critical water challenges like early warnings for all. Water intelligence is what we build. Confidence to act is what we deliver. We ask the GEO principals, donors, and decision makers in this room help us keep delivering life-saving water intelligence to the underserved communities that need it most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Water security is not a humanitarian issue alone. It's also an economical one, and there's no other institution who understand that intersection of investment, risk, and economic better than the World Economic Forum. So allow me to introduce Valentin Golubchenko, lead for Planetary Solutions Strategy at the WEF.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, good afternoon. I'm sure it's been a very productive day already. Better now? Okay. Thanks for the invitation, Angelica, I really appreciate it. Today, I want to make a simple argument. Water security is not only an environmental issue, it is global economic security. Every sector depends on water, every supply chain touches water, and most global major risks we are facing today are intensified by water insecurity. So if we could just... So let's start with a simple fact. The global economy runs on water. We often think of it as a natural resource, but in practice, it is the infrastructure behind most systems we rely on, from food to energy, health, manufacturing, and trade. Agriculture is, of course, the most obvious example, with about 72% of global freshwater withdrawals. But it's only the beginning. Water also cools down our power plants, it supports hydropower, it enables mining and materials operations, and it's critical for industrial production. It also underpins our public health. In 2024, 2.2 billion people still lacked safely managed drinking water, and 3.4 billion lacked safely managed sanitation. So this is why this presentation is framed as an economic security issue, because if water systems fall, economic systems do not remain isolated, they actually absorb the shock. This brings us to the value of water. So one of the most striking figures I've seen in recent years comes from the WWF's High Cost of Cheap Water report. It estimates that the annual economic value of water and freshwater ecosystems is about $58 trillion, which is equivalent to roughly 60% of global GDP. What's important about this number is not just the size of it, it's what it breaks down into. Because yes, we can already think about the direct economic benefits, so that's the water used for households, agriculture, and industry, but that's only estimated at 7.5 trillion. The rest of it, about 50 trillion, is actually less visible benefits. Water purification, soil health, carbon storage, and others. That tells us something important. It tells us that most of water's value is not priced in conventional markets, and we often pay for the delivery of it, but not for the systems that make it available, clear, and reliable in the first place. So the economic case is clear. Water resilience is not a cost center, it's a value protection strategy, and increasingly, it's becoming a growth strategy. This is where I'd like to say a few words about our global risk report. So you may know that every year we draw on insights from more than 1,300 experts worldwide, and we ask them to assess risk across 5 major categories: economic, environmental, geopolitical, societal, and technological. And we do that across immediate, 2-year, and 10-year horizons. Water is not necessarily listed as a standalone risk in every category, but it's really deeply interlinked with at least 4 of the 5. So first, economical. Droughts, floods, and pollution disrupt production, they raise the costs, and they create volatility across supply chains. Water scarcity in one basin can affect food prices, energy reliability, and industrial outputs far beyond that basin. Second, societal. Water insecurity directly impacts health, livelihoods, and education. And when people lack safe water or sanitation, the effects show up in lost productivity, school absenteeism, and social tension. Third, geopolitical. Of course, water does not respect borders. Many of the world's major basins and aquifers are shared across countries. And when the availability declines, cooperation can be strained. And then finally, of course, environmental risk. Water is how we perceive many climate and nature risks, right? Whether it could be through too much water, not enough of it, or water in the wrong place and at the wrong time. So this is why water shocks cascade. A drought can reduce crop yields, which affect food prices. It can also reduce hydropower generation, which affects energy markets. It can force industries to stop operations, which affects job and supply chains. And it can increase social tensions, especially when communities, governments, and companies are competing for the same resource. Similarly, floods damage infrastructure, they disrupt logistics, they trigger insurance losses, but pollution also cascades. Once a river or aquifer is contaminated, the impact can move through agriculture, drinking water systems, and ecosystems. So that's the key point. Water risk is systemic risk. And because it is systemic, it cannot be managed only at the level of a single asset, company, or ministry. A company can make its own facility more efficient, but if the basin is failing, the company is still exposed. A city can build flood defenses that work on their own, but if upstream land use is ignored, the risk continues to accumulate. And that's why we need to manage water not only as a utility input, but as a shared system across industries, jurisdictions, and time horizons. So our Water Futures initiatives identifies 5 pathways to strengthen water resilience. The first one is holistic water evaluation. What that means is really recognizing the full value of it, not just its market price, but its role in ecosystems, health, and avoided losses. Second is fit for purpose finance, which means matching the financial tool to the problem. Some water investments need public finance, some need blended finance, some need only private capital, and most of them need mechanisms that reward long-term resilience. Third, sustained basin level partnerships. That means working at the level where water actually moves, the basin. This requires companies, governments, and communities working at coordinating around shared risk and shared outcomes. Fourth, adaptive governance, which really means governance that can respond to changing hydrology, climate uncertainty, and new data when it comes in, rather than relying only on historical averages. And finally, what we call the policy innovation nexus, that's a forum speech, means creating the conditions for new technologies, business models, and policies to reinforce each other. So this framework is powerful because it makes clear that water resilience is not a single intervention, it is actually a system of actions. That's where Earth intelligence becomes essential. If water resilience is the goal, Earth intelligence is the operating system that helps us understand where the risks are emerging, how they are connected, and where action will have the greatest effect. So for example, for holistic water evaluation, Earth intelligence helps us make the invisible visible. Satellite data, hydrological models, and ecosystem monitoring can reveal the condition and resilience of water-dependent ecosystems. And that allows decision makers in particular to value not only water extraction, but also natural infrastructure. For fit for purpose finances, Earth intelligence improves risk assessment. So investors and insurance need better information on drought exposure, flood risk, and water quality, and better data can really reduce uncertainty and make resilience investments more bankable. On the basin level partnership side of things, it is all about creating a shared evidence base. One of the hardest parts of collective action is that different actors often work with different data, they work with different assumptions, and sometimes different incentives. Basin level intelligence can really help align them around the same picture of risk and opportunity. And when it comes to adaptive governance, Earth intelligence enables more dynamic and informed decision-making. Water governance based only on historical records is no longer enough because the baseline is shifting due to climate change. So real-time and predictive data can really help governments shift from their reactive crisis management to proactive planning. And then finally, for policy innovation nexus, it's about measuring what works. So the UN's SDG 6 assessment explicitly notes the role of innovations such as citizen science and satellite-based Earth observation in helping bridge water quality data gaps. So overall, Earth intelligence allows us to make better decisions by connecting observations from space, sensors on the ground, and economic data into one integrating decision support system. In other words, if water is the foundation of economic security, Earth intelligence is how we see, manage, and protect that foundation. So let me close by going back to my initial message. Water security is global economic security because water is the invisible infrastructure behind growth, trade, and human development. The challenge is that we have treated it for a long time as cheap, local, and abundant, when in reality, it's becoming valuable, systemic, and increasingly volatile. We can change that. We can value water more holistically. We can finance resilience. We can build basin-level partnerships. We can govern adaptively. And we can use Earth intelligence to turn fragmenting data into shared action. So the call to action is really simple. Secure water and we secure growth. Secure water and we strengthen resilience. Secure water and we can protect the economic foundations upon which our communities, our companies, and our countries are built. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentin. So we have heard the economic case for water. Now let's see what it looks like when a global model hits the ground and changes decisions. So the next two presentations, we have two deployments from opposite sides of the world. First, we will have Youssef Shankay from Ecociencia and Inami, who will talk about the case of Ecuador, one country, one institutional cascade, and a drought that tested everything.
Okay, you listen me? Yes? I see. Today I will present a summary of the implementation and impact of the INAMI GeoGlows platform in Ecuador. So it's about how global models become a national service for decision making. So before, thanks, please, or I can pass. Okay, before the INAMI GeoGlows platform, the National Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology of Ecuador have major gaps. The first one is the limited hydrometeorological monitoring by by 2021, only 18 hydrological stations were operational nationwide. But the hydrological forecast was difficult also because Ecuador have a complex topography and hydroclimatic conditions, and this creates highly diverse hydrological regimes. For example, we have vast Andean basins, or large Amazon basins, or flood-prone coastal areas. And the third one is the limited computing capacity. Servers have enough power for only a small number of models run, sometimes only one worth run per day. And finally, INAMI has limited capacity to maintain outcomes for collaborative projects that after they end. So the challenge was clear. Ecuador needed a platform for hydrometeorological forecasting that was operational, national, and sustainable. In this regard, within the Servir Amazonía initiative, in collaboration with CIAT, Brigham Young University, and Ecociencia Foundation, we co-developed this platform. Co-developed means that the platform was built together with Inami, considering and mapping its real needs, operational needs. The first step was understand these needs. The features were defined around Inami daily priorities. For example, monitoring rivers, checking rainfall, visualizing forecasts, validating warnings, and communicating information. The second step was the co-design. The development was done side by side with dynamic technical staff. This was very important because the platform had to be useful for the people who will use it every day. The third step was the user feedback. Users regularly test the tool and recommend improvements. This helped improve the platform in practical ways. And the fourth step was the continuous update. Technically, the platform integrate GeoGlow's river forecast system with the Inami station data, hydrological station data, satellite-based precipitation products. This is a scheme of how the platform is implemented. We have several products, satellite-based products, GeoGlow river forecast systems, and the goal was to transform the global information into locally relevant hydrological data for decision making. After the platform was launched in 2022, Inami adopted it as national owned operational service. This changed the platform role. It was no longer only a technical tool. It becomes a way for Inami to deliver hydrometeorological information to other institutions faster and more efficiently. This process was supported by a strong capacity building. Since 2022, more than 13 in-person and virtual training sessions were conducted. More than 450 technical staff were trained nationwide. The information of the GeoGlows was adopted by the Risk Management Secretariat, integrated into the 2 national monitoring rooms and 80 provincial units. Around 14 validated cases, the GeoGlows-based warning cases in 2024 in the wet season of the 2024. Thanks. But the institutional cascade include the energy crisis during 2024 in Ecuador. Hydrological reports based on the GeoGlows information were sent to the presidents, and this information was used to support decisions on daily electricity rationing and wildfire monitorings. The platform incorporated real-time hotspot and fire conditions monitoring modules, and the Ministry of the Environment presented its publicly as the strategic prevention tools. And also another institutional use was the education, the Ministry of the Education, because the platform informed decisions on the start of the classes in the coastal region. That is a region that present flood every years. Next. The lessons the lessons in the Inami GeoGlows platform was the Ecuadorian experience shows that the global models do not create impact on their own. Impact happens when data is translated, validated, owned, and used by national institutions for decision making. And how we do it? With real need mapping, with co-design, and continuous feedback of the user of the platform. And the institutional commitments matters because the future of the water security is not only about better forecasts, but also about countries being able to own and act those forecasts. Thank you very much. This is my presentation. Sorry for my English.
Thank you, Yusuf. Our next presentation comes from Virendra Parasharia from Easy Mode, and he's going to take us to the Hindu Kush Himalayas, where the challenges crosses borders and the rivers don't ask for permission.
So while my presentation is being loaded, not this one, I guess.
No.
This is the template. I said, it's the wrong one.
Oh, Lord.
How do I move the slides? Okay, next one. Good afternoon. As Jim mentioned, we are the first hub who were privileged to test the model outside US. And then that time we were mainly working in the flood was one of the major issues in our region. And then most of our preparedness was very low. So most of the response to floods was more reactive. Once the flood is there, generally all the agencies started to act on it. So with this GeoGlows, with the stream flow prediction tool, we used to call that time, provided a very promising tool that we could really improve the forecasting from 2 to 5 days to more than 15 days to 15 days, as well as also can fill the gaps where the stations, hydrological stations were very scarce in the region. So any hydrological modeling was kind of very challenging task for our region. And also another challenge is the lack of upstream information, disaster data. Although precipitation, rainfall data are quite easily available, the disaster data is considered kind of sensitive data, and the countries really didn't share those disaster data sets. So this also provided a very promising supplement to the gap in our region. So how we started is like Survey. That time we were working as a Survey edge case hub, and then BYU's was one of our applied science team leads. So based on the same methodology, we were able to customize it, and we targeted for 3 countries, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan. And then we also engaged very closely with the National Hydromet agencies so that they adopt it in their forecasting system. And also we developed the online platforms using Tethys, which again supported by BYU. And we were able to design a very user-friendly interfaces so that we can also convince our partners. And that way, the Flood Forecasting Center in Bangladesh, their request was again to get the data on the boundaries of the Bangladesh border so that they can feed that into their own national model and improve the forecast. And that was one of the kind of unconventional application of this model. Similarly, we also developed the community mobile apps for the community so that they could see the water level rising or the discharge of their east segment in Bangladesh. And then for all these, training was, capacity building was one of the major component where even our national partners were staying overnight to attend the trainings that were conducted by Jim's team. So it was a kind of very close co-development and collaborative effort that time. So based on that, one was again covering the whole edge case region. We had this stream flow prediction tool. And then also what we found is like, this is not a perfect solution. So even in the smaller watersheds in the upstream of upstream rivers, it was not so, the results were not so good. That was the kind of feedback we got. So we used the same methods, the same approaches, and then Jim helped us to develop another system on flash flood, mainly focusing on the smaller watersheds. And that was one of the most popular application, which is adopted at the community level with agencies like Red Cross and National Disaster Management authorities. So that was again another application that we were able to develop because of this collaboration. And also like our African colleagues will also highlight it. We were also able to support it, to integrate it in community-based early warning system in Malawi, which was again another example of how the same platform can be used in multiple ways. What we see is like currently we have seen that now it is a kind of a global platform where it is available to all, accessible to all, and they can use those information. But again, we still see a lot of opportunities in the region. This geographical scaling is very easy because you can easily replicate in other countries. And also we see a lot of these possibilities. For example, flood inundation is another gap that we are seeing in our region. So if we can relate this discharge data from the rivers to the inundation, mainly in the southern part of Nepal, in Bangladesh, in northern India, and also in Pakistan, there's larger Indus areas, it will be a very useful tool so that we can go for impact-based forecasting. We can forecast those communities. We can alarm those communities who are in danger of potential floods. So this will be a very important addition, and we definitely would like to see what is possible and what is feasible. Another is again water allocation for agriculture, and also for the hydropower. This is again the low flow kind of applications, because we normally focus on floods, but again it also has equal potential for low flow applications, especially in Nepal, where many hydropower projects are depend on the run of the river model. So for them, discharge in the river streams are very important information. So if they can know that what they can expect in coming week and coming 10 days, this will be a very important tool for them, even to manage their power trade that we have, cross-border power trade with India and Nepal. So this is also in demand, and we see a lot of additional potential which can benefit not only to the communities, but also to the countries as a whole for the economic development for countries. So with this, I would like to see that, again, Survey Global Collaborative reorganizing itself, and also we're opening a lot of opportunities for new potentials and new probabilities and new partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Virendra. So now we heard from model to deployment. And now the harder question is, what does it make water intelligence actionable across institutions, across borders, and across sectors? So for this, we have a panel, and I'm going to be introducing each of the panels. So as I call you, please come to the front. First one is our moderator, Pete Epaching, who will keep us on time. We have at the table also Tania Gascon from the WMO, leading early warning systems across Africa. Pink Merchai Ida from ADPC and the Servier Network, Southeast Asia, bringing the operational reality from the Asia Pacific. Gila Loike is a product manager at Google. She's going to be joining us online. Susie Vanks de Piento is a senior manager also at google.org, where she leads philanthropic investment that put Google's technology and resources in service of the community that need them most. And finally, but not least, Maria Carreño Lindelian, senior water governance officer at IUCN, bringing the governance lens that ties all together. Yours.
Thank you, Angelica, and thank you to my panelists, both here in the room and online. So again, my name is Pete Epanchin. I'm with Signal. One of the exciting things that I get to do is to work with the Severe Network, including some of the panelists that we have and some of the people that you've heard previously in the implementation of GeoGlows. And as Angelica introduced this panel, this is really about this one central question around what makes water intelligence actionable across institutions. And so we have an amazing amount of data at our fingertips. It seems like it grows every day. Earth observation advances, forecasting advances, environmental data, and pairing that with this explosive emergence of incredibly powerful tools. These are all just absolutely amazing resources at our fingertips, and yet these tools and data alone don't result in action. There's some really important missing pieces along the way. Action happens when institutions trust the information, when they integrate it into their decision-making processes to enable human behavior change and to enable action, when systems are invested in, and when we work across sectors and scales. And so we heard some really great examples, both in the South Asia context as well as in Ecuador just a moment ago. And so we're going to move today's conversation really in a structured way from the human reality of the various challenges, including missing forecast information, to where the rubber hits the road with operational evidence in the field and the conditions that are needed in order to incite investment and spur that on and to bring our work to scale. So what I think will be exciting as we have this conversation is to be able to move into thinking about some opportunities that can come from this. What are some practical next steps to help us bring the science into operation? How does the philanthropy fit inside of this? Climate finance to support the work that's being done, ultimately driving impact with actionable information and data. So as Angelica has already introduced this amazing panel, we will just go ahead and jump right in, and I'm going to start with you, Tanya. So Tanya, again, was with the WMO, leading the climate risk and early warning systems for West Africa and Central Africa. So you work inside the WMO's cruise program, and working in Western and Central Africa, one of the most vulnerable, underserved, exposed regions, climate vulnerable, exposed regions in the world. What does it look like on the ground when a community or government doesn't have reliable river forecast information? And what decisions simply can't be made in those contexts?
Thank you, Pete, for this question. So, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to this panel session. So, that is a great question, Peter. So, to ensure early warning system is critical that all related early warning pillars are equally improved. It means disaster reduction, detection, observation, monitoring, forecasting, warning dissemination, communication, preparedness, and response. In case of lacking river forecasting, basically the early warning system chain is not working. So in case of possible river flood occurrence, the flood warning decisions should be taken based on adequate riverine flow forecasting. It means the forecasts that are tailored to with using local data. That is critical. Use local data to improve forecasting. So that is going to help and is going to facilitate warning decisions and with enough time, preparedness and disaster preparedness and response. So to assist population and reduce the flood impact. As you indicate, one of my focus areas is Central Africa. So it's a region in which the WMO, Trough Cruise projects, and other projects are working in this moment to improve the capability of flow forecasting and warning surveys. So allow me to provide you an example. In May 2024, cities from Burundi and Democratic Republic of Congo, so were impacted by devastating flooding due to seasonal increase of water level that were exceptionally increased around 2 meters above average. So studies carried out by the Laboratoire d'études géophysiques et océanographiques spatiales, called LEGO in France, show that from April, so the monitoring of water levels was requiring attention, and nobody was aware about the situation. So especially the National Meteorological and Hydrological Service. So what happened is that in May, so the citizens are around Burundi and Democratic Republic of Congo, so the experiment very sad flooding that left more than 200 people affected, including several people died and thousands of displaced people. So in this area, so WMO in this moment is currently improving the capability of having flow forecasting and early warning system. So, but to come back to your question, what decisions cannot be made if we don't have reliable forecaster? So if you don't have reliable forecaster, we cannot advance them. We cannot provide tailored information for early warning, and disaster risk management cannot efficiently adequate the preparedness and response measures.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for sharing that example with us. Definitely highlights the critical nature of having local forecasts so that actionable information can be taken. Pin, I'd like to go to you. So Pin is with ADPC, the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, one of our colleagues also working with the East Asia and Pacific Severe Hub. So you've been part of deploying GeoGlows operationally across Southeast Asia. And I'd love for you to tell us and share with us a specific decision that occurred by a specific institution or community that was different because of the GeoGlows intervention that they were able to access. What was done that was different than had they not been able to have this information?
Thank you so much, Pete, and nice to meet you all. So I would like to share an example of the success by applying the GeoGlows in the Southeast Asia. Actually, it's linked with the project that currently we work together with IUCN as well, got the funded support by EGIS. The things that happened was in the Southeast Asia. Now, the case that I want to talk about is in Thailand. So the northern of Thailand or the southern of Thailand, before that, we try to raise up awareness about the impact of the consequence of the climate change. And those kind of a sudden flood or landslides going to happen more frequent. But because of they did not really face that much in those areas that we are working on. So at first, they did not really pay attention. Even we share the informations like from GeoGlows. But then 2024, right after the project kicked off, and we keep talking, raise up awareness, then boom, it was like continuously typhoons that hitting the northern of Thailand. And it was suddenly create a huge flood that impact to the capital of the city of that province. Then because of the upstream is Myanmar, which we lack of the informations. Then during those times, we start to kind of like work together with the local governance, like provincial administrative organizations, also the local irrigation department, like water stakeholders together. And then introduce them of these alternative open source data, work hand in hand together, and then with that kind of like build the trust. Because to be frank with you, the governments basically they trust their own data, their models, the stations, informations. But for the stream flow data, we lack of the station to provide this information. So that's why GeoGrow has become like a main data source that they start to see the importance of it. So then from there, the last monsoon season, after they work together also with the communities, they decide the thresholds and then use the return period from the upstream from Myanmar, verify together with the flood model that we set together. And that showed the promising results. And that's why, because of that big flood, that they would like to prepare beforehand. So the recent monsoon last year, they used these GeoGrows from the upstream, work together with the local models and stations, different sector come together, monitor during the monsoons. It started around June last year. So then that helped them to kind of like make a better decision to release the water through the wheel before it's gonna really reach out to the riverbank and then again have the same consequence from the 2024. And with that, it start to raise up awareness of the important, because of nowadays in the Southeast Asia, the consequence of the transboundary river basins, that lack of the information start to play a huge impact of the damage and loss. And I think that's opportunities for the Earth observation informations work together with the informations from the governments and together also with the citizen science, because we found during our work is that even though the provincial authorizations try to provide these informations that I just speak about, but community couldn't understand. So that's why we bring them on board together and then try to develop the threshold classifications to match different need, I would say. And that create like awareness of the decision makers to use the forecast informations to take action before disaster happened. Alongside with that, on the planning, the GeoGrows, we use it to run different that return period, right? And that helped to kind of like we show this to the Department of Disaster Mitigation and help them to kind of like improve their plan to cope with perhaps extreme scenarios better. And link with the IUCNs, that kind of scenarios we also use to identify the nature-based solutions within that northern and southern of Thailand to identify the suitable NBS measures to cope with that kind of like extreme scenario as well. So that's kind of like a success story that we see that the informations, these transitions could save life and reduce the damage on the ground. Yeah, Pete, over.
Thank you so much, Pin. Preparedness, transboundary information, ultimately resulting in life-saving action. I'd like to turn to Gila, who is online joining us. Gila works at the intersection of science and technology for the Google research team and using that to deliver human impact. Hello, Gila. So Google Research works to make flood intelligence available to authorities and communities that need it most. This is similar with what GeoGlows does. And I'm wondering, when you look at which partners come to the table, what excites you most about what these types of partnerships can really unlock?
Thanks, Pete. Nice to see those of you that I could see. Apologies for joining remotely. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. So as you mentioned, Pete, my work focuses on melding technology and science in ways that benefit people and can have impact worldwide. And the floods forecasting team, where I work most closely, has been using machine learning and AI models to predict floods before they occur. Today, our models provide riverine and flash flood forecasts around the world. And so at Google, what we're always interested in doing is giving information to individuals when they come to us to find out what's happening. And especially during times of crisis, this is really important. However, that's really not sufficient. We recognize the critical importance of having our forecasts available easily accessible, and adoptable by local authorities. Authorities possess critical local expertise, regional knowledge, the ability to react quickly, and more directly aid their communities and populations. So both from a research and a scientific perspective, we actually saw partnering with GeoGlows as an opportunity to both help GeoGlows expand its forecasting to new areas by integrating some of our forecasting AI models, but also to enable scaling crisis resilience efforts to support the early warnings for all effort, especially for NMHSs and communities that traditionally lack high-level technical and data resources. So ultimately, this helps us at Google move towards the goal of building an ecosystem where models can be coupled in order to increase reach, scale, and efficiency. And some of the work that everyone here has already been talking about really speaks to that. The ability of GeoGlows to get to the folks that need it, to have the impact, and to really help in all the ways that giving successful forecasts can move the needle.
Thank you, Gila. And that is a perfect setup for our next panelist, Susie, who's with google.org. We heard about the availability and accessibility and adaptability of information by local partners from Gila. And google.org has made a generous investment into GeoGlows. And that investment seems like it was motivated not just by the technology, but going further than that to think about some of those points that Gila was raising. So what was it about GeoGlows and their work on the ground that made this really become the right place for philanthropic investment?
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. So happy to be here again. Sorry couldn't make it in person, but really enjoyed and hearing what everyone has been saying today. And I think the goal really of my talking points here is really to talk about why philanthropic capital here and why GeoGlows became an interest to google.org. At google.org, our North Star is really ensuring that these mature cutting edge AI models don't exist just in a vacuum and just serve kind of commercial ends, which have very much a purpose, but they must actively kind of benefit and reach vulnerable communities that really need it the most. By providing flexible philanthropic funding, we really allow technical teams like GeoGlows to really build, iterate, and kind of stabilize systems without the pressure of this like commercialization that makes it a perfect vehicle for kind of a global sustainability initiative. And really, as Gila just mentioned, there are this like huge power of these AI breakthroughs. We've seen incredible leaps at Google with AI-driven flood forecasting, kind of using machine learning to kind of predict these kind of extreme weather events. This kind of unprecedented accuracy and lead time in these, even in these really data scarce regions. Now, what we wanted to do with our philanthropic initiative with GeoGlows is really kind of bridge this gap between AI models developed and also the operational tools that are running reliably inside global networks like GeoGlows, kind of what we're calling like operationalizing AI. We believe at google.org that the world is better together. And we know that these AI models shouldn't live in isolation. And the really real breakthrough happens when we couple these advanced AI models directly with GeoGlows' foundational kind of hydrological frameworks. By overlaying these kind of AI predictive power that is consistently being improved upon onto GeoGlows' robust physics kind of base river network models, we think that this best of both of these worlds. We have these lightning fast pattern recognition of machine learning kind of paired with these deep structural reliability of kind of traditional earth science. It kind of gives forecasters earlier warnings and kind of sharper accuracy. Also for us, investing in GeoGlows' open infrastructure really gives the technical scale that Google.org makes a priority across our investments. We know, and that's really the technical side, but we really know that the real magic happens on the ground. The flow forecasts are only as useful as a local official understands it, trusts it, and knows how to use it and how to work with it against their own water priorities. So, you know, our goal is to not just drop global models into regions and just walk away. We know that true sustainability really relies on working side by side with local communities to train stakeholders, ingest local data, and customize tool for their specific watersheds. And we, working with GeoGlows and working closely with our partners inside Google with Gila, we knew that GeoGlows really had all the components that we were looking for to kind of fund these types of innovations that we're looking for on the ground. Now, the training and the localized workshop and capacity building are what really turn water insights and AI predictions into this kind of like sticky, trusted, everyday decision-making tools. And our goal was really to invest in the people just as much as we're investing in the code. And we really found those two things really merging together when we were funding GeoGlows.
Thanks so much, Susie. Yeah, the power of technology, the power of the models, but that's not enough. The ability to deliver impact at scale and to have all of the right relationships for uptake. I love it. Let's go to Maria with IUCN, working at the intersection of freshwater governance and ecosystem conservation. So Maria, IUCN sits at the intersection of freshwater ecosystem management, nature-based solutions, water governance, and that's increasingly where climate finance is flowing. How does river forecast intelligence connect to IUCN's work on environmental flows, freshwater conservation, and nature-based solutions investments? Are you seeing opportunities for new partnerships or areas where we need to crowd in more?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and also thank you for the invitation to speak here today. So as you mentioned, IUCN is a global membership union, so we bring together government, civil society, science and practice to advance conservation and sustainable development. In freshwater, that means we work not only on ecosystems, but we also work on the governance systems, the institutions, and the investment pathways that determine whether rivers, aquifers, wetlands, and basins are managed sustainably. So we, as you said, we implement a large portfolio, particularly also freshwater governance projects. And I want to sort of take us into a little bit how we can use this type of data in the governance work that we use, particularly with the background that we have and with links to our growing Jeff portfolio that works in international waters and also links very well with the story from Pin here. So we have worked since 2011 through our Building River Dialogue and Governance program, which work on transboundary basins, building trust, strengthening institutions, and supporting agreements with the key to move cooperation from principle to practice. And data for that is not an accessory. It's a governance issue. So for us, we look at effective water governance as a dependent on the shared understanding of the resource. Therefore, in transboundary basins, as several of the colleagues here have mentioned, countries often rely on different data sets, models, monitoring capacities, or incomplete information, which can lead to competing narratives around the water available, the risks, environmental flows, allocation, and important infrastructure. Hydrological data, such as data from GeoGlows, is therefore not just technical, but it's part of the architecture of cooperation. And without the credible and mutually understood information, these governance processes will remain fragile. Agreements between countries will be harder to implement, and the basin organizations will struggle to play their convening role. It'll be difficult to operationalize nature-based solutions, and this were in a way that really reflects the hydrological variability and the risks. However, as we've seen, hydrological data can be politically sensitive, particularly in transboundary settings, because it shapes allocation decisions, perceptions of natural water security, infrastructure planning, and upstream downstream dynamics. And there's also, as we said, technical asymmetries, as some countries have stronger hydromet systems, denser monitoring networks, and more advanced modeling capacity. So, and then you mentioned this, for us, data sharing tends to follow trust. It rarely precedes it. You need the trust to be able to share the data. So that means that the river forecasting and intelligence cannot simply be introduced as a technical fix, but it can provide a practical entry point for a joint analysis, shared interpretation, and confidence building. So this is where we see that platforms such as the GeoGlobe will become highly relevant, because it provides a neutral, globally consistent, and openly accessible river forecasting and stream flow intelligence, and create this technical reference point that's common, especially where national data sets are uneven or difficult to share. And this can support several governance functions, which we sort of encompass in our governance programs, such as the shared baseline for dialogue, improved flood and drought preparedness, stronger technical credibility for basin organizations, better integration of e-flows into planning and operations, and the stronger design of nature-based solutions for climate adaptation, improved planning for combined natural and built infrastructure. So it sort of provides that independent layer of river intelligence that can help countries ask better questions together, in terms of rather shifting the discussion from whose data is right to what does this shared evidence suggest that we need to manage together. So yes, I think there's opportunity to write these type of projects into the type of work we do. We've seen the examples from the presentation here in the Mekong, but I think the key here is not to frame it as a technology project, but as a governance and adaptation project enabled by river intelligence. So you can see it as sort of two pathways, either looking at governance and data integration for transboundary cooperation, where you position river forecasting tools as technical support to basin dialogue, joint analysis, early warning, and institutional strengthening to help basin organizations play a more active and evidence-based role, and also as river intelligence for ecosystem-based adaptation. So you can use that forecasting to strengthen e-flows, wetland management, and NBS, and climate resilient basin planning, which is clear relevance for the GCF and GEF type of investment projects that we're looking at. So the key is to connect this river intelligence to the governance outcomes. Yeah, and that's where we see sort of the interlinkages. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate your optimism of international cooperation for human and natural resource conservation for those outcomes. We are really short on our time. Do we have a moment to ask the audience for a question? Okay, one question from the audience. I have a whole list of questions for my panelists, but I'd love to hear from you. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, Mark Denman with the World Resources Institute. Fascinating conversation here, and I'm learning a lot more about the application of GeoGlows. It's really a great model for what we're seeing, as I'm seeing like the growth of it, right? And I'd love to maybe hear some more about, because I think lessons learned here about the scalability and how this could be applied not only to river but other kind of water intelligence for other groundwater and other surface area and green water and blue water, etc. But trying to wrap up like two follow-up questions is like the application I'm seeing, and if I'm hearing correctly, is around one element is for like the monitoring and compliance across different user groups, for community groups, for governments, for companies of what's actually happening in the river systems. So monitoring, and the second is on planning and design, and those can be for future investments and river basin organizations. It's a lot of complexity to tackle in there, and then now there's a lot of pressure and interest made from different groups of the use of AI, and we got to use it now. And there's a lot of it's like urgency around to do this. So what would be interested in your thoughts on how to maybe use this river and this intelligence to give the right space to do this in an evidence-based way, and not that could speak to, and it should be focusing more on monitoring, and then, or like when to use that into the design and the planning discussions, because it seems like there's a lot of limited time and capacity to do this type of work.
Well, let's hear from our panelists. It's a complex problem, so a complex question was natural.
Thank you very much for these questions. On the monitoring part, one of the key, information that GeoGlobe provide, based on my experience supporting GeoGlobe implementations in the Caribbean and also in Africa in collaboration with BYU, is that GeoGlobe facilitate also data standards complying with our WMO hydrological observing system and related tools. It means that at the same time, the solutions allowed the monitoring of water level, but also the generation of forecasting for warning decision. It's a tool also that have a lot of flexibility to incorporate different indicator that can be used for the different analysis at the level of hydrometeorological service. So thanks that the tool is developed with open source solutions, and also the support is providing with tailored capacity building, so countries have in their hands a solution that they can customize after a specific support that is provided by the developer partners. Thanks.
Perhaps my mic on. I'll turn online quickly if either of our online panelists would like to chime in before going to Pin. I think I saw you going for your mic, but I wanted to give them an opportunity.
Yeah, I'll speak for a moment. Essentially, obviously, we do a lot of work with machine learning and AI, and one of our key drivers, and this is where like technology and science comes together in a complicated way, right? We're always interested in grounding it in like very, very strong benchmarking, right? We're not trying to build something that is like totally, crazy and out of there. And every publication that we've done and every benchmarking that we've done has been against together with ground truth that we've had available that's been kind of gathered for many years. So part of what's been nice, at least in the riverine side of things, is that we actually have years of data at this point that we're building on to know that our models are reliable. But I think, to talk to something slightly different, I think the opportunities that lie in the AI space are not necessarily on the hydrological forecasting side, but maybe it's more on the getting the information into the hands of those who need it, and for usage in the way that they most want it, right? The ability for individuals to build their own dashboards, or to kind of just talk to the data behind the forecasts, and then have it be really easily accessible, easily viewable, easily understandable to the folks on the ground who are actually looking at it. I think we're going to see tremendous leaps forward in that space, not driven by anyone here necessarily, but driven by individual needs across the world. And so I think the opportunities there are quite tremendous. But what it means very strongly is that the underlying data that we're providing has to be very, very solid, so that that clarity and that trust remains.
Thank you, Gila. Would anybody else care to venture into the question?
Just a quick supplement with the other speakers to respond to that. Yes, of course, there are now the pathway of using geogrowth for monitorings and make decisions beforehand. And the other pathway is for plannings. The thing that we are working is that we need to make sure we clear of the different need of the end user who are we working with. And that's how we kind of like mapping these stakeholders landscape and make sure we really understand what they really want to know. And actually GeoGrowth, they provide the forecast stream flow, but for monitorings, the end user, one of the end user, they get familiar more of the water level informations to make their decision to drain the waters or irrigate the water to the farmers. So we kind of like have to play that translations from stream flow, work together with that stakeholder because they have rating curve, and then they work together, and then that accelerate the use of the end user faster. Because I think the key point is that we need to really pick up the real interest and need for them to make their decisions. That's for the monitoring. But on the other hand, we also see the useful of the GeoGrowth because they provide kind of like long-term different return periods, scenario informations, and that match with the planners, people who kind of like think a little bit in the long-term plan. So that also, how to say, open the door for them that, oh, there is such a kind of like open source data like that for them to work on the planning side. So that's help us to kind of like not that much strugglings, but then we kind of like get some bind and then make impact. Yeah.
And Maria, I'm so sorry. We need to wrap this up. Okay. Well, I want to thank our panelists. We came here with a question, what makes water intelligence actionable across institutions? And I do feel like we heard some excellent responses from a diverse group of people representing practitioners on the ground, scientists, the community of climate, of financing, conservationists. And we're seeing entry points across this entire chain of actors to engage in order to bring to bear the information so that you get uptake, so that things are designed in ways for action and impact at the end of the day. And I look forward to the potential that AI integration can promise in maybe unexpected ways, not just thinking about data integration, but as Gila mentioned, in the way that we access it and that our partners and beneficiaries may access it as well. So with that, I want to invite you to appreciate our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists.
Oh, yes, I turn it back to you, Angelica.
Okay. So we heard about the investment, the vision, and the governance. So now we have two small presentations, demonstration to see the technology in place, because one of the strongest pieces of GeoClose is how easy it is to be deployed and how easy it is to get to the local organizations. So I will introduce Steve Cope from Esri. He will show how the GeoGlow's stream flow forecasts are now integrated into ArcGIS, Living Atlas, putting the global river intelligence directly into the hands of anyone already working in that environment. So Steve, all yours.
Thank you, Angelica. Angelica challenged me. I guess we sort of mutually came up with this idea that if I could actually build a web app on the fly in front of everybody live. So I'm going to do just a couple of very quick slides just to provide some context. First slide, please. This is a slide from the 2015 GEO meeting in Mexico City that Jim mentioned, where we had originally started talking about the ideas of GeoGlows. That idea is to take weather forecast information which turned into gridded runoff data, put that runoff into a watershed, put that watershed water into a stream, and then turn that into a collection of multi-resolution, time-aware web map layers. Why do we do that? Because we want to put them in a web application. Why do we want to put them in a web application? Because we want to get them to people, get the information to the stakeholders. So next slide, please. So most of you know what ArcGIS is, but the key thing on this slide is that ArcGIS is an integrated platform that sits on top of a large collection of online data and applications. Next slide, please. It's basically built to publish and consume web services for about the last 10 years. So the key piece in here is there's hydro content in ArcGIS Online. That includes the GeoGlows forecast data and historic data as well. There's about 100 million items or so in ArcGIS Online that serves about 1 billion requests or several billion requests a day. It's a combination of community data like the GeoGlows data, a lot of open data like Landsat and Sentinel and other things. And we also have a team of people in-house who build data for our customers. Next slide, please. So it's a collection of data and services. Top left, GeoGlows, Streamflow Forecast, multi-resolution. There's a bunch of other data in there as well. WRA, Aqueduct in the bottom left-hand corner there, and Hydrosheds data. Hydrosheds 1 was the original base data that was used for the first round of GeoGlows. Next slide, please. Oh, the JRC global water data is in there now too, as of a couple weeks ago. Next slide, sorry. So Hydrosheds version 2, very briefly, it's happening, it's real. This is actually Hydrosheds version 2 of the Americas that we're reviewing right now. It's built on a 30-meter terrain model that was derived from the 12-meter Tandem X data. The QR code here at the bottom, I'll get my head out of the way, is where you can go sort of keep up to date on what's happening with it. The stream network, flow direction, and flow accumulation will be available for download in July, as well as web services from Esri. And since it's going to be a GeoPackage download, I anticipate that within hours or days, there will be plenty of 2 minutes already. Whoa, okay, I better get over here to start demoing. All right, next slide. I'm gonna run over like 2 minutes, but that's it. Yeah. We're actually gonna go to a different app. That was in the previous. It's already there. Good. Or didn't get done beforehand, we were trying. Where's that? Where she goes? That type of. So I'm not going to add a bunch of extra layers. I'm just going to go straight to the map. Add one layer. Close layer. Close layers. Add living atlas data. Geo. Close. Living atlas. Add. So at this point, somebody might want to add their own local data that they might have. We're going to go up here. There's some stuff going on over here. Let's say we were interested in the headwaters of the Lena River. We see there's a flood coming soon. We can actually go look into the future, see when that's coming pretty soon. Let's build a local app for that. Okay, so let's save that. We're not going to give it anything other than demo, save. I'm going to share that. With the public so you can all see it. And all my typos. And then we're going to create an app. We're going to go to instant apps. There's a big collection of app templates in ArcGIS Online, but we know that the one that we want is Streamflow. Where's the Streamflow? Not liking this mouse. Streamflow. Oh, okay. Sorry. Different screen size. It always shows up on the left for me. Thank you, Jim. So the reason that we want to do this is we have a lot of customers who want to create their own national or city level or county level or community map, and they have a bunch of other data that they already have available as web services that they'd like to include in their local map. So we're just going to go in express mode and we're going to say next. Yeah, we like where the map extent is. We don't want to say anything about it. We can configure the stream flow itself. It can be global using GeoGlows. There's also a US-based model in here. There's the ability to filter streams if I wanted to see just streams for Colombia, or I don't want to see first order streams or something like that. But we'll just say next. Change a geocoding service, whatever. And then there's a lot of other widgets that we can add to the map. I'm not going to do any of that. You can add additional widgets and change the positioning of the widgets, add your organizational logo, whatever, but I'm not going to do any of that. We're just going to publish. And view published app, it gives you a link that you can paste into an email. This is the app that I created. This is fully hosted in ArcGIS Online. And here we have our interactive Streamflow forecast app. I'm going here and just click on a stream of interest, and it'll populate a time series graph. It'll populate a time series graph. There we go. And we can move the time slider in the graph. It of the map updates the map, and you can see the change in flow in the hydrograph. You can make that graph smaller if you want to, or completely disappear, or bring it back up. Can you pop me back to the slides? So that's your demo. And if you didn't see enough, she has links here. We're going to pop back to that. QR code to the first app, which is already pre-built, just go use, and a blog post that explains how to build your own. Here's the last slide. Well, the QR codes on it. I don't think I have time for questions.
Thanks.
Questions about that? Just see me anytime this week. You can sit and build them.
Thank you, Steve. So last but not least, we are going to have Beth Larson and Karina Larco. They are both from BYU, and they will walk us through the Hydro Viewer, which is an open source workflow that allows any country, any institutions to deploy and customize GeoGlows for their own context in minutes. So in minutes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm feeling pressure between you and freedom and dinner. So
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Karina. And thank you all for spending this last hour and a half with us today. I hope that it was useful and something, you can do something with what you saw today. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.